you for joining us today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do anything for Ruben.
Oh man, that's what they all say.
We go way back, and she, did this with just me asking her like on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah.
But before we introduce the illustrious Rochelle Mills, I do want one other piece of housekeeping to go on the record. This is for the ELCO chapter. Monica has looked into it with Eric Yu about us trying to get a tour of the New School of Design in San Diego. And they got immediate response back from them, and we're getting ready to coordinate to have that happen and hopefully get it done before the Christmas holiday. We have to find out when are their finals, because ideally we'd like to go when you may be able to see some reviews happening or work up. And they're even entertaining. They asked us, how many students do we have that are going? Because they would basically charter a bus for us. So my thing is, Dan, you could start to poll the students to see who's interested in that. Monica just took a stab and said 20. My thought is that we get our group, but if there's space left over, which there probably will be, that's where I can extend it to ELAC and SMC and just make the rendezvous point ECC, and all the students that want to go, let's do it. So this is a hot topic, and Monica's all over it. She's going to find out when that should be. But if you could start to query with students, and Abigail, you chime in too, start asking some of the classmates who would be interested in seeing that, and let me know. We're trying to make that happen this semester. So without further ado, because I am recording, but that's why I wanted that in there for those that are not here but will see this recording. I'll just do a brief introduction and let Rochelle take it from there. But Rochelle Mills is a longtime friend and associate of mine. We actually started NOMA together. And should we say how many years ago that was? That was the 3 stores.
I'm not getting any younger, so you might as well say it.
It was like 88 or 89, right? Yeah. Right there. Yeah. So we both graduated from schools of architecture. I think she was Midwest, so she'll tell you, but she grew up here in LA. And I don't know if she's going to say it, so I'm going to say it. This is very funny because that's the first family of architecture here. Her twin sister is in interior design. Her husband is an architect, and the twin sister's husband is an architect. So there's a lot of architecture going on there. And one day I will ask Linnell, her sister, to share her experience, because she works with her husband and does interior design with him, where he has a full architectural practice. So she does architecture too and is doing all of that. He's dabbled in development. So they've got a lot of interesting stuff. Now, what Rochelle is going to talk about is her latest foray of work, which is housing. But I did mention her husband because my goodness, he does awesome single family homes. I don't know if that's still what he's doing, but it's drop dead. They even used it in a Jaguar commercial. It's like, what? It's some sweet stuff he does. He'd be another person to bring to the table. So it's the Jacksons of architecture. So you can't be in this family if you're not in architecture. Huh? I don't know what your daughter's done. What did she wind up doing?
She does not want to do anything in architecture.
I'm sure she did. And she said, there's enough of you guys.
Yeah.
Well, so thank you. Without further ado, I'm going to let her explain exactly what she does and take it from there.
Sure. Thank you, Ruben. Ruben asked me to talk about one of the parallel career paths in architecture. And I'm happy to do that. As he said, my name is Rochelle Mills. I'm with Innovative Housing Opportunities. I'm the president and CEO there. And when I started in architecture, my goal was to, I don't know if you've seen photographs of Frank Lloyd Wright, or even I think Neutra has one where he's in this fantastic cape with a cane and a hat. And I remember
It's
seeing that
funny you
image
say
and
that because
thinking,
that's Dan Richardson's screen save when he normally has it. You don't understand.
well, that was the image. I thought, oh my gosh, the command of that. But how I got interested in architecture, I did not realize that my dad had wanted to be an architect, and for a bunch of circumstances, not the least of which was the time that he grew up in Texas, it just wasn't feasible for him. So I wonder if there were subliminal messages that I heard. And my mother had wanted to be a fashion designer, but her mother felt like Black people could not be that. And so she persuaded my mother to give up the idea of being a fashion designer and become instead a seamstress, which I learned just before my mother passed away that she hated. She absolutely hated doing that kind of work. But I gave that background because I remember when I was really young, my parents would take us to the museums, me and my sisters, and I remember seeing an exhibit of miniature furniture at LA County Museum. And I just was fascinated by it, the detail. And I remember thinking, that's what I want to do. I want to design miniature furniture. And I remember as I was going home, just the logic behind it. And I thought, but if it's really beautiful furniture, then it should be real people size so the real people could sit in it. And then I thought, oh, but if it's really good furniture, then I need to design the environment that it goes in, because heaven forbid people take my beautiful furniture and put it in some ramshackle house and ruin the whole thing. Well, if I'm going to do the house, then I need to do and so it just kept growing into where I thought architecture was where I wanted to be. When I grew up in thinking about architecture, I went to Crenshaw High School. And I remember there was a drafting class. And at that time, they were really pushing minority students into engineering. And I would say, I want to be an architect. And they'd say, you mean a civil engineer, don't you? No, I think it's architecture. You mean electrical engineering, right? No, it's architecture. You mean construction engineering? And so they were just, it was always about something tangential to architecture. But when I went to apply for schools, I just loved getting mail. And I'm telling you far more than you want to know, but this is how I got to where I am today. And I applied to Notre Dame. My dad wanted to he thought Clemson was a great school, and Cornell's got a great school of art. I applied to Cornell, I applied to USC, I applied to anything that allowed me to have a free application fee. Because at this time, my older sister was in college, my twin sister was going to school, and so we needed to figure something out. However, my twin sister got an application from Washington University in St. Louis, and they kept sending her mail. And in this mail, I saw that there was an architecture program. And so I scratched her name off, submitted my name, and they offered for me to go to college for the summer, because they were really trying to attract high caliber minority students to the Midwest, because the fact of the matter is we're in a beautiful state. And so most people stay local. And those who have the scores and the interest in leaving the state are going to go all the way across the country to Harvard or something like that. Nobody stops in the Midwest. And so they were really trying to diversify, not just racially, but geographically, by attracting someone from Los Angeles. So I felt like, oddly enough, the school that had the best program description was the University of Detroit. And that's where I said I was going. However, WashU offered me a summer there for free. And I thought, hey, I could fly out to St. Louis. So I went to St. Louis. And then when I got there, exactly what they expected happened. Well, now I'm here. I don't feel like going somewhere else. And so that's how I ended up in St. Louis. And that's where I met my husband. When I was there, I remember talking to my professors and them saying, one in particular who was just a really difficult man. He told me upfront that he did not appreciate me being there. He was very clear that he didn't think that I should have been there, that I was probably there on some kind of, equal opportunity set aside and didn't have the caliber to be there. I will tell you this, that what I did recognize there was how much the field of architecture involved art and creativity, whereas coming from where Crenshaw and this move to engineering, I had no understanding of freehand drawing. I had no understanding of perspective. I had no understanding of color. It just never came into the equation. We had a drafting class and we had engineering classes, but we didn't have, there was never a discussion that architecture had anything artistic to it. So when I got to the school and I said, well, when are we going to do some technical drawing and things like that? Because those were the things I knew how to do. And he said, well, are you planning on being a draftsman? Because we're trying to teach people to be architects. I believe that comment that I had made set the tone on what he thought my capabilities were. Because I was asking about being a draftsman, frankly, for him and the, designers and those teaching, that was gum on the bottom of the architect's shoe. The drafts person. You might as well draft and then take the trash out on your way out, because we are artists, we are architects and designers. And I didn't know that. And I remember the very first project that we had to do was do a picture of your smile with your teeth. I didn't know, I'm looking at my teeth and I've got this piece of paper and I take my pencil out, and these kids are the artwork that they created. However, mine went up for the top teeth, down for the bottom teeth. So this curved X, because I'm trying to think, no, it kind of goes up. And he looks at it and says, I think we've got a problem here. Maybe you're dyslexic or something. And, they didn't know what to do with me ultimately. And when I challenged that, I'm not an idiot. I just don't know, didn't know anything about vanishing points. And I didn't know that. I didn't know, people could rattle off the names of the architects. I didn't know any of that. And in retrospect, I remember my dad talking about Frank Lloyd Wright and Buckminster Fuller, Paul Williams, but that was my dad. Who listens to your dad, And so I remember telling this guy, I'm no idiot, you're making these cracks about Black people. I don't think it's funny. And he said to me, don't embarrass me in front of the class anymore. From this point on, you will only get a D. And he made good on that. I didn't know that I was going to get out of school with greater than a D, because he was so well respected that the reputation that he put out just stuck to me wherever I went. At some point, though, I think it was 2 years into my junior year, I remember doing a project and the professor saying, we didn't know you had it in you. But by that time, I had so much doubt from what they said that I sabotaged myself. I'm saying this to you all because I want you to have trust in the decisions that you make. I remember them coming to me at some point and saying, you know, we've got this really great program in Japan. Would you consider applying for it? And honestly, because those first 2 years were so soul crushing, I thought, what are they? Do they think I'm going to put something up on the wall only to be humiliated in front of everybody? So I didn't do it. And I remember them constantly saying, Rochelle, put something up on the wall, put some, I had no sense of trust because I had no sense of pride in the work that I had done. I didn't realize that what they were trying to tell me, but they couldn't tell me, is we will give you that spot. But they couldn't tell me that. They needed me to at least put the effort in. Well, my spirit was broken. You know, there was just no going back. And so I got through it. I will say what I learned from architecture school, from that architecture school, was really the marriage of the design and the how it gets done. When we graduated, my husband is from the South and he was white. And I remember we were thinking, he had a job at a firm, and I said, well, you know, we'll head off to South Carolina and we'll do some work over there because you already have a studio. And I remember our parents talking on the phone and saying, number one, they didn't know racially if the South was ready for it, but they said, people in South Carolina are not going to buy the things that you guys are designing. You're designing things that people in California would buy, but people in the Carolinas want bricks. You know, they don't want curved walls and beautiful, you know, floor to ceiling glass and steel and concrete. So do that in California. So back to LA we came, and that's when I got to know NOMA. My sister said, you know, you need a support system here. Why don't you join this group of architects and get to know the work that they are doing. And that's how I got involved in NOMA. And I have to say, I'm older than Ruben. I joined in '86. And so, so I came right outside of school and joined NOMA at that time. I want to stop now and ask each of you, in your pursuit of architecture, where do you want to take your studies? If you are taking the foundation that Ruben and El Camino College are giving you, what is it that you're thinking about doing? Is it architecture? Is it single family design? Is it set design? Have you given any thought to that? And let me start with Abigail. Abigail, why don't you introduce yourself and tell me what is it that you are interested in doing?
Hello, ma'am. I just take this opportunity to say thank you for coming to our, how do I say? Well, thank you for attending, I guess. My name is Abigail Delacruz, and I'm in my 4th year right now at El Camino College, and I'm working on my associate's degree in architecture. Recently, I have moved from focusing on the general architecture major to maybe transferring as an interior design major, though I'm not regretting anything I learned in architecture because they're all just sort of intertwined. So I'm kind of in the middle right now between architecture and interior design, but I definitely love both, and I'm definitely open to both in terms of moving forward. Specifically, I think I would like to graduate doing interior design for residences, but commercial sounds fun too. So I'm honestly open to anything.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Jose, tell me about yourself.
Hello, my name is Jose Mejia, and I'm 2nd year at El Camino. Currently, I want to go into residential architecture, one family mostly.
Okay, single family, okay.
But for now, that's all I have thought about, and I need to go to a good school that will help me with that.
And why single family residential?
Well, ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to build my own house, so that's one of the main reasons. But truly, because I don't want to necessarily go over my head, but I can't say I can't do commercial. I just don't think that's where I should be personally.
Absolutely. No, I love that. I just wanted to know had you thought through that. So I love that you did. So thank you for saying that. Landry, tell me about you and what's your interest?
Hi, how are you? Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. As you know, my name is Landry. I've been at El Camino since 2018. And so I first started out in the real estate field. And so once when I got done with all of my real estate classes, I moved over to construction. And so I'm done with taking all of my construction classes. So now I moved over to HVAC and architecture. And so my goal is basically to be able to do like fix and flips in a residential like sector. And so I want to be able to design like buy like lots that I have like a single family home, and then I could tear down like that home and I can design 2 homes. And then eventually, after I build up my cash flow, I do want to start designing small to medium sized apartment buildings of like 25 to like 50 units. So I only plan on just getting my 2-year degree at El Camino. And so my plan was, once when I drew up the plans, I was just going to take it to a licensed architect, have them look over it and stamp it. And then of course, go to an electrical engineer, and then have a plumbing engineer, and then a mechanical engineer, and just go about it that way. And then once when I got that done, I could be able to do my true passion, which is build affordable housing, right? And then also I wanted to have like a nonprofit for teens that was high risk, you know, that didn't come or grew up, you know, like in a good household. But in order to be able to have like a good nonprofit, you got to have like cash flow coming in, because it's like a lot of times like your nonprofit, it doesn't really pay the bills. So I just wanted to use this as a tool and an instrument to build up my cash flow, for that I can be able to offer services to the people inside and outside of my community with affordable housing, and then with programs for like teenagers, just trying to be able to get them to turn their lives around.
Okay, wonderful.
Boy, oh boy, did he come to the right lecture, didn't he?
And I know Dwayne, you know, I know Dwayne is in the trenches now. Dwayne, I never did ask you what brought you into this field and where you wanting to go with it.
Oh, that's me then. But I started at USC around the same time you guys started in the early 90s. I was actually a member of the first student chapter at USC. So over the years, I've worked for different firms here in LA and in Southern California, and I've done hospital work, K-12, college campuses, hospitals, medical office buildings, restaurants. I've done in affordable housing. I've done a lot at different firms. And now I am on my own doing small residential, small commercial, and ADUs, accessory dwelling units.
Okay.
I think my
Oh, your voice went out. It dipped again.
I think my my passion kind of goes with the type of
Oh, I don't know why it went. Your voice went again.
Yeah,
Your
Dwayne,
passion.
I think it's something about your microphone. When you turn your head, we lose you.
Yeah. So
Can you hear me now?
yeah, stay right there.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So your
All right.
passion is go from there.
My passion kind of wavers with each type of project I do, because each project has different parameters and things to consider. And I think that is the challenge that I enjoy.
Okay.
Also, from one of your previous lectures, I think I would like to be on one of your what do you call it? You said that the community comes in and reviews your projects. When the community comes in and reviews your project, help during design.
Okay.
With the community review board or something like that. I think you mentioned that previously. But I would like to take you up on that. I just haven't had time to call you.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dwayne. Monica, tell me about yourself.
Hi, thank you for being here. I'm really excited to hear more about you. But my name is Monica. I am in my second year at El Camino, and I think the reason I want to go into architecture is because my dad's a general contractor. So like ever since I was small, like we'd go to like some of his the houses they were working on, and like I would see the process like as it got built. And I don't know, it was just always really intriguing. And then I took like a sculpture class in like high school, and we made like a little model, and I don't know, I really liked it. And it just got me thinking like, I think I want to do architecture. And the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, yes, this is definitely what I want to do. And there's so many applications to it, and there's just so many paths that I can take. And I think right now I just want to get into residential because that's what my dad did. But I'm like open to more.
Are you talking about single family, multifamily?
Yeah, more like single family, not anything crazy. But I'm still new to this, so I'm still open.
Sure.
Everything.
Well, I appreciate that. Dan, I know you're not a student, but tell me, why are you interested in seeing folks move into this field?
Rochelle, thanks so far for what you've presented. It's been quite interesting. I really enjoyed it. Architecture was something I was some way introduced to when I was about 9. And it really wasn't just architecture. My parents did a little remodel project, addition project in their house. My dad was a fireman, and his friends came over on a rotating basis from their fireman duties and built our little remodel addition to our house. and it was just so fascinating that spring and summer was like magical. And ever since I wanted to do this. And when I got to junior high, where we had a drafting, the technical side, the drafting that you were talking about, I got to see models and drawings, and I just did that. And then in high school, I did an A period before they had them, and did a drafting class. And I went to El Camino College, and the rest is history. The funny part about this, I've been teaching for about 25 years, which I still call my new thing. And it's new because I've been designing and building houses for about 50. The interesting thing beyond that is on my list of top 99 things, architecture, teaching was not even in the top 99. It just happened quite by accident. But it's probably the best thing I've ever done. I still live designing, building, and overseeing projects. And I do single family, like most of
But well,
it's an amazing thing to be part of. And even more than that, being with my peers at El Camino, like Ruben particularly, amazing. It's amazing life, the art, the architecture, and all the related components of that. So
okay,
quite fun.
I'm gonna go back around, and I'll ask you to give me the name of the architect whose work influences you. And for Landry, you tell me what developer in this space is influencing you. So Monica, let's start with you. Who's the architect?
Yikes. I guess Frank Lloyd Wright.
Okay. Abigail, tell me who's the interior designer whose work you like.
Rebecca Robeson.
Okay, wonderful. Dwayne, whose architecture do you like?
I would have to say Paul Williams, but I also know there's so many other talented architects and designers in NOMA. Strangely enough, I'm not familiar with everybody else's work. So maybe that is exhibit coming up.
Okay. Jose, tell me whose work inspires you.
To be
And if you-
completely honest,
If you guys are in a space where you can, go ahead and turn your cameras on. Let's see you guys.
Yeah.
I don't have a specific person per se.
Mhm.
I just grab information and I see what my professors show me. I don't specifically have a single person. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Landry, tell me developers who you admire.
I really don't have, well, honestly, I really don't know of any architects who I could say that I admire their work or that's an inspiration to me.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure like the more classes that I take and as I begin to dig into the history of it, then I'm pretty sure I'll probably gravitate towards like one or at least like two of them. But right now I don't have any.
Okay, I want everybody to take, we're going to do an exercise real quick. Take one hand and put it out in front of you, just like I've got. Okay, do that. Let's take the other hand and slap it. Shame, shame, shame on you. You all should be looking for inspiration. Landry, you gave such a passionate explanation of affordable housing. There are people in the city who are doing great work. You need to know who they are. Jose, you made a passionate discussion about why single family housing. There are architects whose work would blow your mind. There's no reason why you should not be going online to see who they are. Monica, I'm going to give you half a point because you said Frank Lloyd Wright, but his work is very dated in terms of how people interact with spaces now. So I want you to take a look at some contemporary work. If you do that, and then you go back and say, I love the classic lines of Frank Lloyd Wright because XYZ, then you get your full point back. Abigail, you get a point because you actually named a designer. And I want to ask you, what about that designer excited you?
I think the way she presents her designs and the way she explains her thought process, you can see that she's not just showing off the information she has. She definitely wants to help people grow and wants to share her knowledge with other people so they can design like her. And I'll have to commend my professors because they do that too. And that's what I love about that's what I love about people that know more. Like they don't keep it to themselves; they share with others, and then that inspires me to keep going. That inspires me to keep looking for what I'm trying to get to. Yeah.
The thing that intrigued me about architecture was the idea that we have the power to influence how people move through space. Whether, I mean, if you have gone to a mediocre restaurant that you love because of the environment, you know what I'm talking about. When you walk through a park and you see the colors of the plants and the textures and the heights, and it isn't accidental, those are intentional. If you want to be in this field, you've got to be able to look at that. There is too much inspiration out there for you to be locked into your head. I don't have a problem with people doing single family residential work because that's what I did. And I find so much creativity in it. There, my husband, if I was in another room, I turn on my screen so you could see it. All of our wealth goes into books because that is what he does. And so in my path to architecture, I remember watching my husband and probably because I still carry the baggage of the words that were said to me in architecture school, I always felt like I had a great talent for architecture. I feel like my husband has a gift for architecture. It doesn't mean that if you've got a talent that you are not good. I just mean that I could see there is a way that my husband approaches designs with that complete freedom that comes with understanding the environment and the textures and the materials and all of those things that I tend to second guess myself. And what I need to help me get past that is inspiration. So when we started when we started looking for jobs, I tended to go for small firms because I was interested in single family residential. And most large firms cannot sustain on single family residential. So they do a lot of larger projects. And I wanted to do single family residential. My heroes at the time were Richard Meyer. And we're talking about his residential work, not the Getty and things like that, though those are extensions. Hugh Newell Jacobson. At the time, Gwathmey Siegel was a big deal. Mario Boda, who was an artist and an architect in Europe. Frank Gehry and some of the things that he did. Just the shapes, the colors, the materials, those kinds of things. I really implore you to take that seriously. And when you make a decision that says, I want to go into single family residential, that you are fully convinced of it. If you are going to work for someone else, then they want to know that it is not just a whim that you came up with, but it is something that you are committed to, that you can bring value to them because you've thought that through. If you don't,
she said value to them. Boy, who does that sound like? They know. Mr. Richardson says that so many times.
Yeah, you've got to bring value. You've got to bring value. It is a tough career. I will tell you, the first few jobs that I had, when the project was over, the firm was closing because we didn't have business sense. And so you've got to be able to bring something to them that helps them get to the next project, that cues up those projects. So when I started doing my work, and I would watch my husband interact with clients, and clients would say again to me, I remember, what this one woman said to me, is your husband going to be able to look over the drawings before you bring them to me? And it is amazing, the crazy stuff that people say under the guise of, I hope this doesn't offend. Well, of course it offends. No, my husband is not going to check my work. I'm designing a kitchen. I'm the one who cooks. Why would my husband be checking my work? But people say stupid things, And so I remember thinking, well, this is not fun. I need to be inspired. So at the time, there was a retrospective on case study architecture. How many of you know what the case study houses are? Do you know work by Richard Neutra or Rudolf Schindler or, okay. Well,
so y'all write that down.
Yeah,
It's actually a
do
thing. And
because
you can
I
look
will
it
tell
up.
you, one of the things Southern California is known for is our mid-century modern designs, the clean lines, the simple shapes, but the incredible connection between interior space and garden space. And I remember seeing a lot of these architects and saying, I want to hear from them why they design these buildings. So we created a company called Architours, and we would take people to go see these works. Some amazing work around the country and in Canada. We would go visit the architects. My husband would say, oh, it's in this issue of this magazine, or this was on TV, and these are the architects who are up and coming in that city. Someone would say, I'd like to do a tour of Chicago. We knew Frank Lloyd Wright was there and Sullivan was there, but my husband would say, here are the up and coming architects. Let's, make a phone call to them, and then let's see if we can get people to fly out and go see these works. And so that helped me, because I did not have, like most of you, I didn't have that vocabulary of, oh, I like this architect, I like that architect. I didn't have that. I didn't have that growing up. So I needed to go see it and hear it and understand why they chose these materials and why they did that. So for a while, we were doing both of those things. We had Mills Studio, which was our single family residential work. And we did mostly high-end single family hillside homes for artists and art collectors. Our work was featured on programs like Fine Home Living or Fine Living, HGTV. We were in the LA Times magazines, those kinds of things. And then we did ARCHITECTURES, where we would go and show people work. And when there was a period of time when Las Vegas really upzoned, I mean, really created these landmark hospitality designs that you see now, like the Wynn Hotel and the Bellagio. And at the time they were creating museums. There were a couple of really great museums, and the exhibit design was fascinating. And so we would put these tours together and we would put it out, and museums would say, I want to come out and I'm going to bring 20 of our art collectors with us. And so that kind of helped me get going. But the reality is that architecture ebbs and flows. And when the economy goes down, people don't need you to pick their pillows for them. They don't need you to do their renovations for them. And so we're the hungry folks. So sidebar, learn how to handle your money, because there will always be an adjustment in the economy, and the architects are first to be hungry. So that's just some reality for you. And so, but during one of these lean periods, I remember I was working for my sister and her husband. They had a firm and they had some contracts that were doing HUD work. And that's when Dwayne and I worked briefly together for them. I was doing my tours and doing my architecture, but to help make ends meet, I was working for my sister. And she said they had a contract to do affordable housing inspections, HUD work. And I remember thinking, HUD, that's not sexy and glittery and wonderful and fabulous like I think architects should be. But you know, we were kind of hungry, and so hey, I will go and do these HUD inspections. And so I started to go and look at affordable housing, and we would do these inspections for these buildings that HUD had built, and they were all pretty nice, to be honest with you. But the way that they clustered low-income people together really drove down the value of a neighborhood. And here's something that I learned at that moment that I did not know before. That very same design, depending on the mindset of the person living in it, can be seen as luxury housing or as low-income housing. Same materials, same square footage. It is all in the mindset. This took me back to my idea about the mentally understanding what architecture is and the way we can influence it. And a perfect example is if you take a look at and write this down, Village Green Apartments in Los
I
Angeles.
knew you were going to say that.
If you take a look
And
at
Nickerson
Village
Gardens.
Green and Nickerson Gardens, it
It's
is
the
the
same
same
plan.
architecture, the exact same architecture, different mindset, different mindset. So you can take this beautiful design that you have, Monica, for a single family residence, but if you don't imbue to that owner the value of what you are designing for them, it will look like crap. And that is critically important, because I remember we've all, and you will too, design projects that we will deny to our death, because that was the project that we had to do because we had to pay a bill. The thing that hurts is when you design something wonderful and people trash it. And Landry, I'm going to come back to that if I don't, remind me, because that's something that I have seen in affordable housing, is how it is being designed today. Yet if you don't teach people how to live in it and the value of what you are passing on to them, it can be trashed. And you do not want that reputation attached with your work. Oh, I know Jose's work. It's that stuff that always looks pretty bad after a couple of days. You want people to know, whether it is a restaurant or a residence, you want them to, when you hand these keys over, you want them to be elevated by it because you've put a lot into it and you tried to create something that reflects who they are. And so you want them to live at it in the context of Village Green versus Nickerson Gardens. And so that is the power that we have in the work that we're doing. Now, when I was doing those inspections and those housing things, one of the clients that I was working for was a developer called Innovative Housing Opportunities. And I will tell you with all honesty that I went to IHO, as we call ourselves. I went to IHO to do the inspections and hey, I'm just trying to pay some bills, y'all. I'm going to get this done. And in 2 years, I'm going back to my lofty Mills studio and hang out with the beautiful people. You know, we would do these multi-million-dollar homes for them. You know, people always say, well, where do you live? Well, nobody gave me any multi-million dollars to do it, but I remember thinking I'm going to do this affordable housing, and then I'm going to get back to my work. And they called me and they said, you know, Rochelle, we'd love for you to stick around. Would you consider being a project manager? And I thought, project manager for affordable housing? I don't know anything about that. Not really excited about the prospect of it, but need the money, I will do it. 2 years later, I came there in 2006, and 2 years later, 2007 happened. The bottom fell out of the economy. And I remember telling my husband, okay, well, I'm done here. I'm heading home. And my husband said, hold on. Only one of us can do this hobby for a living. The other one has to get a job, and you've got benefits and a steady paycheck. You've got to stay at IHO. And I remember thinking, well, if I'm going to stay at IHO, I have to actually learn what affordable housing is. And so I'm going to share my screen and show you some work. All right, this is a rendering of an affordable housing community. It was done by an architect, Studio 111. Now, it's interesting, being in the field of architecture does come with a little bit of ego. You know, some call it egotecture. You know, you're doing design and you're putting a lot into it, and there is a cachet that comes with the title architect or designer that is hard to give up. But one of the things that's interesting being a developer is I get to hire the architects to complete my vision. And I had to get comfortable with the fact that yes, it's not Rochelle, but Rochelle is writing the checks. They have to do what I say. There's some power that comes in that. And I remember the first time I heard the term developer was when I was in architecture school, and I was getting my drawings together, and this kid comes to me, and he's from Orange County and from a wealthy family. And he says to me, if you want to have the kind of control that it sounds like you do, because I was saying, I want to be able to design this, and then I want the yards to look like that, and I want the streets to look like that. He said, you need to be a developer, because that's the person who finances all of it. I find a lot of the architecture schools now are looking at social architecture, urban design, urban planning. And I do think to an extent he's correct here, in the sense that the developer is the one who buys the land, has the vision, hires the team. And so I believe that architecture brought me to a perfect point where now this is what I do, is I bring in the team to help implement our voice. And so in terms of affordable housing, as I said, I came in it with no understanding of housing development, but I do believe that architecture was very important to it. And I'll tell you, we were having a talk with my team. It's only 10 of us. And, you know, there's me as the CEO, I've got a CFO, a COO, who's the chief operating officer. It turns out that all three of us went to architecture school. And we were thinking, what, you went to architecture school? You went to architecture school? In development, there is a lot of financial work that has to go in, particularly when you're using public funding sources. They call that the capital stack, and the layers, you may have layers from state funding, local funding, national funding, et cetera. So we hire a financial person to help us take care of that, to get all of the financing together and make sure our performers, that we can afford to hire the architects, that we can afford to do certain things. Our financial consultant was a landscape architect. So we are all in this field. But the reason why I love this image is because one of the things with us, and one of the things I love about architecture, is the idea of creative placemaking, or placemaking, period. What we're doing is creating the value of the space. Again, whether it's a restaurant, a person's home, a museum, we are creating the value of that experience. And so this, though the design has changed, this to me represents what we think is the highest and best. You know, it is a mixed income community. So we've got low income folks and upper income folks. This building on the left that you can't really see behind the thing is a commercial building. It's a little office building. So people could, you know, walk out and go to work and come back. So it's a truly walkable pedestrian community. It's got xeriscaping, you know, your landscaping that is environmentally sound. It's a mix of races, it's a mix of ages. It to me signifies everything that I would like to see in a vibrant community. And our motto, it starts with housing, is just that. We believe that with housing, you can then have a stabilized household. It empowers residents. I wish I had included some photographs of some of the residents that we have taken from homelessness and moved into this housing, and within 6 months to see their lives change. I will tell you, when people have lived on the street for most of their lives, the first 6 months they sleep on the floor. You have young children who will sleep with their backpacks on and fully dressed because they're ready at any moment to be evicted, because this is the life that they've lived. But once they're stabilized and you start to see that the design that you created, this environment that you created, you can start to see on their faces the more they're starting to relax, the more they're starting to feel comfortable. And I can tell you that's the same in a single family residence. We just completed our kitchen. We almost completed our kitchen. And my gosh, the feeling of going into that space and it being what I want, it just is empowering. But it also, when you create these kinds of environments, people start to do smarter things. They start to live better. They start to eat healthier. They start to walk and exercise a little bit more. In the work that we're doing, we have services. They call it wraparound services. This is what Landry was talking about, that help people build financial resilience. What I design is permanent, or what we build is permanent rental housing. But we all know that economic empowerment happens in ownership. So we use the services that we have and the partnerships that we have to help people start to think long-term. Because if you're living from day to day in desperation, you're not thinking long-term. And so you're also, now that you've got a stable place to live, you're building more positive relationships. You're not hanging out with those crazy folks that you had to because you're all in survival mode. But there's a sense of pride that comes in the community. And I mean that even with your private developments and your single family residences, people have that sense of pride in the home that they're in and the communities that they're in. And that sense of pride and those, you know, catalytic changes and those ripples that happen also attract reinvestment. So when you're talking about communities that are disinvested or are low income or struggling, those things all bring back that reinvestment. You know, people will, you know, if it goes awry, it's considered gentrification, but those kinds of things start with that built environment. That is what you are buying into in this field that you're in. Here's a project that I want to talk to you about. It's a case study on 87th and Western Avenue in South Los Angeles. If any of you have driven by it, it's a couple of vacant lots and it's a hot mess. It is truly a hot mess, but one of the beauties of design is that you can take that hot mess and turn it into something wonderful. This is a rendering that an architect has done for us. One of the other benefits of being a developer is that we can say, we don't see enough Black and brown and Asian or women architects being involved in this work and have the experience. So we're going to require you to partner with one and mentor one so that they can start to build that expertise and that experience in building it. And we're so fortunate to be able to have done that on this project. So this is going to be 160 rental units on the ground floor. We're going to have a restaurant. The building to the left is that's where our services are going to be located. We've got gallery space. That's the leasing office and those kinds of things. This is what it looks like overhead. You can see, it's really interesting. You can see the Inglewood, the new SoFi Stadium behind. That's to give you some context. But this is the block that we're talking about, this small area. And you can't see it very well, but we've got one vernacular in the front, one style of architecture, that dense urban multifamily architecture up in the front along Western Avenue. But on the side streets, we stepped it down and made them into townhomes so that it starts to move, starts to better replicate and connect with the single family residential in the neighborhood. And so I am showing you this plan on the right because we also have an opportunity to work with landscape architects and try to envision how people will be using the exterior spaces, you know, that we would be able to, you know, have Wi-Fi out there and create the kind of spaces where people can sit outside and do their work and, you know, hang out with friends. And can we create a park-like setting within a small city block? So just some interesting things. This is a rendering that we've got from the inside of the, right where the division is in, you know, that break between the single family or the smaller, the lower profile and the more dense. This is what we're looking at if we look back towards Western Avenue. And I will tell you, as you are doing your drawings and you're pulling your, you know, your images, your clip art in there, please remember to reflect the people who are the clients. It's funny when these architects came and brought us these drawings at first, and this is solidly a Black community, and you see Porsches and you see beach bunnies and you think, who the heck are you promoting these things to? So it's, you know, it's our responsibility to help people be, you know, to what my architecture school would say, you know, you don't want water texture or put a texture. Oh, you know, I wanted a stainless steel on the building, or I just put that over there. You know, you want it to have some kind of meaning, some kind of connection to its site and the people it will be serving. Let me let you know that anytime you want to ask a question, just unmute and throw it at me and I'll be happy to answer it. This is another image. We will probably continue to work with the architects. I am sure they are thinking, well, geez, what did we get our hands into by having someone who graduated from architecture school involved? But hey, you know, you've got the expertise, you use it. So
Where
that
where
is,
is the project in the scheme of development?
so we are finishing entitlements right now, and we are getting ready for our last funding round. If all goes well, this will break ground in the third quarter of next year. Yeah. So this is the second project I want to share with you. It's called Pacific Wind, and it is in the city of Carlsbad. This was an area that was called the historic barrio. It is some kind of rundown little duplexes. It backs right onto the freeway off-ramp. We bought these properties, these 25 duplexes. This is them, and you can see the freeway off-ramp right behind it. We bought these in 2012. The one unfortunate thing with affordable housing and public dollars is that it takes forever to get a building built, because you are susceptible to community input and CEQA challenges, and all of you will learn about that even with your single family homes. If you're doing something near the beach, then you've got the Coastal Commission. That these are all bodies that weigh in and have the ability to stop a project from moving forward. Well, we bought all of these duplexes, and then this guy here who rents out his home for Airbnb actually put the entire project on hold because he challenged the viability of building it. The thing is that this site, though it was called the barrio, is actually less than a mile from the ocean. And now with real estate values, this is some hot property. So it's the historic barrio, not the barrio, it's the historic barrio. And it is near shops and restaurants. And so of course the residents in the neighborhood are kind of concerned about those people moving in. But we managed to persevere. This is another shot from the inside. You know, with affordable housing, we are required to have play spaces or outdoor space for all age groups. There are requirements for the amount of area that has landscaping, the kinds of materials, the sound barriers, the green technologies. It's a pretty expensive proposition, but those who move into these properties rarely move out because they really are high quality. And Abigail, I will tell you, every single one of our properties has an interior designer attached to it.
Rochelle, with that one, what were the properties that were encircled in blue in the plan?
So the property circled in blue, when we first bought it, the ones in yellow, we bought all of those together for $375,000 a piece. The ones in blue were the ones we were trying to buy next. So in the top, this one in the back, and this one that is in the double yellow, we bought those later on that year for $750,000 a piece. These three we tried to buy. I think they were closer to or just short of $1 million. And then this guy, we ended up not being able to buy because he said he wanted $1 million and a condo for his sister in downtown. So we ended up having to design the building around that one, around that one homeowner, because he, you know, he recognizes the value of his land. I mean, he's a difficult guy, but he recognizes the value of his land. Now, this is the third case study. This is El Verano Apartments. We just finished it. It's in the city of Anaheim. And the reason why I love this photograph so much is because of these three things. You see these circles in the driveway, circles on the fence, the gate, and these circles on this living mural. One of the beauties of doing multifamily work is that you have a It can be a beauty and a curse, but we turn it into beauty. You have requirements to meet with the communities. Usually when people find out that affordable housing is coming into their neighborhood, they protest. In this particular neighborhood, we had just built something, you can just barely see it to the left, in the style of Green and Green, or the Gamble House in Pasadena, arts and crafts style. And so when we came to design this building, we didn't have any protests at all. In fact, the only questions we got is, can we get on the mailing list, the wait list to move in? So we had to create something to get the community to get involved, because we have to show that the community is involved and has, given us a thumbs up. So we created an arts committee. We put some money aside and we said, we're going to work with the mayor's office, the city staff, some low-income residents in the area, future residents of our property, and a local museum to help them create some beauty on the building. And so they designed with us and with our architects, these three components. Now, it may not mean a lot to people walking by or driving by, but this was one of those things where I say, you want people to really feel a sense that this is for them, whether it's multifamily or single family or an office building. You want people to feel that this was designed specifically for them. Let me check, do my time check here. And Ruben, feel free to give me the hook when you need me to shut up and turn off. I'm happy to do it.
Oh,
but
you're great. I have it allocated to at least 8 o'clock there. And this
Okay,
is
well,
very
I will
engaging.
be
I don't,
done.
I
I'll be
don't,
done before that.
yeah, I don't think anybody has a problem with this. This is outstanding. Loving it.
Well, this was done for seniors and formerly homeless seniors. Some of the residents had lived in the riverbed for years. There was a story of one woman who, this really caught me off guard, because you don't know how people end up in their circumstances. She had come to Anaheim on a vacation when COVID struck. And because she was from Oklahoma, Oklahoma's borders closed. So she couldn't move back to Oklahoma. So she had to move out of the hotel that she was in into a motel. And because COVID stretched on, she ran out of money and ended up moving from the motel to a shelter. And she said, how in 6 months did I go from visiting a place to being homeless? And so when they offered her a chance to sign up on the wait list, she was the first one to do it because she had nothing to lose. I want to show you the interiors of this, because I think it's easy to say with affordable housing that we're warehousing people, that we're creating institutions, et cetera. But we did an exercise that I work with my staff, and I call it the better versus best. This is the motel that we replaced. This was called the Sandman Motel. It was one of the top 10 nuisance sites, and this big dirt area was the swimming pool. But over time, it had fallen into disrepair. And so the homeless had moved in. It had caught on fire 3 different times before we were able to break ground on it. So we had to use our own money as a nonprofit and purchase it, because when COVID hit and all the businesses closed, most of the money that we get locally to build these projects are coming from tax revenue from the businesses. But with the businesses closed, the city didn't have the money to demolish the building anymore. So Landry, this goes to you and creating reserves so that you can do your work. We ended up having to dip into our own reserves, and we handle our money extremely well. So we have operating expenses for a few years. So we had to dip into our money and loan the money to the project to knock the building down, to keep it from being set on fire by drug addicts and others. And so those are some of the things that you don't realize. And I say that because if you're doing single family work, Sometimes you will be out doing a rehab of a project, and they say once you take the walls down, the drywall down, you don't know what skeletons you find in the wall. You realize that the electrical is not what it's supposed to be. The plumbing is not where they thought it would be. The sewer line is not up to par. And so it always ends up being a bigger deal than you thought. And so we knocked this building down and built the apartments that we show. Now this I want to show you because, as I was telling Abigail, we always have an interior designer involved. When you build something new, and I want to really impart this to you as architecture or people in the field of design, do not get lazy. The building on the left, or the image on the left, is a beautiful building. It is better than what most people will have. The building on the image on the right is best. We were real fortunate when this project was done. We had it professionally photographed. And when I saw it, I said, I don't like it. Everybody, oh my gosh, this is beautiful, they would say. I'd say, no, it's clean and new. But don't mistake clean and new with architecture. You will see, and you know, hey, I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm in Orange County. I mean, I work in Orange County. I live in the Crenshaw district, but people will drive blocks and blocks of these overly planned neighborhoods where every third house looks the same. They are gorgeous if you don't know what architecture looks like. You know, if you don't know architecture, what you see is these are beautiful because they are new. They are manicured. That is put-a-texture. Somebody put it there. Everybody's happy with it, but it's because they don't know better. We are in the design field. This is what you'll want to move into. There is a difference between the image on the left and the image on the right. I'd love for you to unmute and tell me what you see. Why would one be more advantageous or more exciting than the other? Can anyone tell me that? It's the exact same furniture.
Is it the exact same chairs?
They're the exact same chairs. This is a photo, you know, it is distorted because of the photography, but it's the same chairs. I'm going to give you a hint. The building on the right, the image on the right is all white and all clean. When somebody comes into that space, they say, oh my gosh, this is new and this is clean, but I'm not going to sit down because I don't want to disturb anything because it's so clean. And the building, the image on the right, you've got books on the shelves, you've got some decorations, you know, a few tchotchkes here and there. You've got some paint. So if you were to stand in that room, you'd say, you know what, let me have a seat. You know, let me sit down for a minute. The one on the left is more like a doctor's office because it's sterile. The one on the right has warmth. What you are creating is warmth. Even when you have a very cold and sterile, what do you call it? You know, concrete and steel. Let me give you my husband's website.
And I was going to say, Rochelle, the first thing on that was the layout of the chairs. Like you said, on the left, it is more of a waiting room where I want to be in my private space.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody and I don't want to know anybody. I just want to be in my own space. And on the right, they're in the round and they're set to be an engaging thing. If you had a group on the left, you couldn't engage.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. It is a difference between it being a waiting room and a welcome in a reception area where you receive people and you engage and you're creating a relationship. The one on the left is where you stand in the doctor's office because you're, you know, do I have cancer or don't I? The one on the right is where you sit with your friends and you say, you know, what's going on with you, girl? You know, they're completely different spaces. Here's another example, the same thing. It's just, you know, it's the other side of the room, but the same room. You've got the exact same chairs. Again, this is distorted because of the photograph, but the one on the left and the one on the right give a very different emotional response. Abigail, I'm going to ask you, describe to me the difference between these two and why you would pick one or the other. And it could be either one of them. I'm fine.
Thank you. Well, what I'm immediately noticing here and what I noticed in the previous drawing or in the previous set of photos is there's a lot more to interact with the photos that are on the right all the time. There's pictures on the wall, things that your eye can look around aside from like blank walls. You've got more plants, like more actively placed within the room. You've got different, the colors in the chairs are comparatively stronger, and there's a whole lot more interaction between the different colors. Here in these photos, I see like there's nothing on the tables in the photo on the left. It's just like, well, what am I going to do? Set my phone there? I'm going to use my phone. But on in the photo on the right, you have a bowl, you have a globe. Maybe you have a kid coming over and they're bored. And
absolutely, absolutely. Like that. You don't dare put your coffee on the chairs on the left because you know, gosh, heaven forbid you spill. You know, it's so stark. It's the exact same chair, the exact same color. The richness comes out because of the textures and the patterns. You've got artwork on the walls. When we first moved in, when we first had our residents move in, they would tell us all the time how much they loved the building, but they were always standing up. When we come in now, they're sitting down in the chairs. This is the environment. I mean, this is the power of the architect to design a space. You know, in a single family residence, you might put rugs or carpeting. Here we can't because we've got wheelchairs and there's tripping hazards and et cetera. But it doesn't mean you don't put texture in there. I remember when I said to our folks, you know, put some pillows in the chairs and put some artwork on the walls and some, you know, vases. And their comment was, this is affordable housing. You know, these people may take the pillows and take them to their room. They will take the pillows to their room. So you go to a place like TJ Maxx and you get a gazillion of them and you just put 2 more pillows out. You don't live in a stark room to the left because somebody may ultimately take your fake plant with them. You know, we're building environments that engage people. And so it requires you to take it that much more seriously. Here is a view into our, that same room from a different vantage point. And this is the room where we do our, you know, we may have meals together in there. We may be teaching them money management classes, et cetera. Let me ask Jose, tell me the difference, what your thoughts are with these 2 spaces.
Well, firstly, there's a different color wall. That's there. It's vibrant. It's yellow. It's warm, like you mentioned. Second of all, there's paintings. There's items on the table. You could probably open the cabinets in the bottom. There's probably something in there because there's different colors on the top. Isn't just empty, and I don't know. It's just more welcoming.
I love that you said that. The pop of color really does. I mean, there really is something to a feature wall. When you're thinking of doing your single family residential, let me encourage you to not consider, to not get lazy and simply do white walls. Even though you are doing, especially if you're looking at doing it as flips, what people are buying into is the experience. It's funny because people can't see. You may take for granted that you can see in 3 dimensions. You could look at the building, the room on the left, and you could see, okay, I'm going to put this, I'm going to paint that wall, I would do this. But if you put that on the market, the one on the right will sell, the one on the left won't. People can't connect the dots. This is something, you know, don't take for granted the gift that you are being, or the talent and the gift that you are being given and the work that you're being taught to understand it differently than the general public does. And so I cannot say enough, go to the, you don't have to go to Hennessy and Ingle and buy a book, but you should know where Hennessy and Ingle is. Let's write that down, Hennessy and Ingle, you need to get there. You need to see what those books are. Go and get inspired. Get a magazine, take a look at it. Get inspired. Your job is to inspire others, not just to plop it down. You're not hired to be put a text. You are hired to become architects. You are creating the environment. Frank Lloyd Wright would tell people how to dress, where the furniture sat. And he was, the quintessential narcissistic architect. But something we should take from that is he understood the entire ecosystem he was creating. Let me see, there's something in the chat. Let me make sure I'm getting that. Okay. Someone's having issues with Spectrum. Okay. Let me go to our next slide. Okay.
While you're going there, Rochelle, the Architecture Club took a tour of an architect's office last semester, and it was Studio 111.
Love those
So they
folks.
love them.
Love those folks. They are doing the design of the first project the first image that I showed you. Knock on wood, we'll break ground with them in in December of next year. This one was done by RRM Architects. They are an architect based in Santa Barbara. And the reason why we hired them is you need to know who your audience is. You need to know who your client is. We knew our client wanted Santa Barbara style architecture. Even though they didn't know how to say that that's what they wanted, we knew what they wanted. So we hired an architect who could deliver that for us. If it doesn't, it doesn't do you any good to have sexy drawings and that sit in a drawer. If you want to get it built, you need to know who your client is and be able to deliver something that you can be proud of and that they can be proud of as well. Let me ask Monica, tell me what the difference is in these two spaces. And this is the exact same space.
In the photo on the left, there's a lot less play on light than there is in like the right one. I like the paintings on the wall. That gives people something to look at. There's the plant in like the right, and I don't know, there's just like nothing to do in it's just like chairs in an open space.
I'm glad you mentioned the play of light, because that's something that people don't think about, is when you're designing something, you need to take into consideration how the light comes in, the shadows that are cast. The reason why we are using such muted colors here is there is such a thing as, I wish I could, harm reduction. Harm reduction. When you're dealing with people who have had traumatic lives, those bright fast food colors may not work for them. You're trying to help soothe people so that they're less agitated. And so we wanted to get some muted colors that are calming. But as Monica said, the space on the left is pretty stark and unappealing. The one on the right.
And I think one thing, the feature wall on the right, what happens is you have all of that great light coming through, but you don't appreciate it on the left because it's all bright. Yeah. So on the right, you have the bright light coming through the windows and the feature wall is dark in appearance.
I love that you said that. Yeah, there is a play on
contrast
and height. This is what you have. This is the power that you have. When you are designing a space, think about, can you lower the ceiling to help direct people how to walk and where to walk. One of the things Frank Lloyd Wright was known for is you come into an entrance in a Frank Lloyd Wright space, and it was a very tight and confining space, not uncomfortably so, but it moved you into a living room or another space that had a tall ceiling and lots of windows. People don't realize that they are being manipulated into a space. But if you are doing your work well, you're directing people how to walk. You're directing people where to sit. You're directing people how to feel. It's like going into a Target. You can go into a Target in Los Angeles. You can go into a Target in North Carolina. You can go to a Target in Houston. You know where everything is because somebody has painstakingly decided how you move through that space. An architect can do that in a single family residence without people even realizing that you're telling them where to go and how much time to spend in it. With the materials and the colors that you're telling them how much time to spend in that space. You're telling them whether it is a transitional space where you're moving them through like a hallway, or a living room where you want people to linger for a little while. You have so much authority in the computer or in the pen that you're working with. You don't want to take that for granted.
Question for you, Rochelle.
Absolutely.
You said know who your client was. I get the sense, is your client a developer that you're doing this for?
Our client is typically in the case that I'm talking about, we're talking about a city, the city that may be that we're saying we want to design this for. The city council members will be the ones that say, I don't really like, I don't like the way that looks. I lost a competition once because we didn't give the architects enough time to get the drawings done. We were the only ones who fully understood the design and the aspect of the community, but the drawings were so rushed that you could see immediately when we pulled them up, you could see the council kind of jump. We knew at that moment we had lost them. We had them all the way through till we brought the drawings. You need to know that, we should have known that they didn't want contemporary work. The clients can also be, in our case, the residents who are going to live in there. If we've got, like I said, if they have been chronically homeless, then we know that we need to have openings and brightness, because if they've been living outside for a couple of years, being inside can be really intimidating. And so how to design the space. Sometimes what we will do is we'll have our interior designers, some of our colleagues have talked about this, paint stars on the ceiling so that when they're laying down, they at least feel that they are outside. It's just that trigger. They know they're not outside, but it's that sense of respect, knowing who you're dealing with. When you're working with seniors, like we did in this image, the interior designer had never worked with seniors. How do we know that? Because the seats were too low. Seniors can't sit that low. And seniors also don't always like to sit in a sofa. They like the two arms of the chair so that they can get out. As you're getting older, there's dignity in being able to be independent. If a person has to get someone's help or they've got to rock forward to get out of a chair, you've taken that dignity from them. Know who your clients are. Know who your residents are. If you've got a client who loves to cook, you don't give them a Frank Lloyd Wright sized kitchen, because Frank Lloyd Wright, gave the leftover space to the kitchen because he felt like the staff was going to do that, and they didn't merit having these majestic spaces. People love to cook now. So if you want to infuriate somebody, give them a little closed-in kitchen where they're in there cooking away and the entertainment is happening and they're not part of it. Know who your client is. In this particular case, and Landry, this will be something of interest to you. This is called the Aspire Apartments. This is done in the city of Riverside. I'm going to hustle through this because I want to show you something else. This is done in the city of Riverside for transition age youth, those young people who are coming out of foster care, or kids who are in the community college but are couch surfing or are homeless, because there is a growing number of young people who are in college but don't have a stable place to live. So this, the city of Riverside put out an RFP, a request for proposal, which is a competition to ask developers, can you come in and solve this problem for us? And so we designed these 34 apartments for young people who are in Riverside Community College and who may not have a stable place to live. This is the living room. I didn't include any other plans or anything, but the kinds of spaces that we wanted to create, if people have not, maybe they've been in foster care or something, but they don't have a stable home base, we want to make sure that this is not just a place where you walk through and pick up your mail, but we wanted to create a living room so people can get together and feel like this is their home. Not that this is housing, but that this is their home. And so we're trying to create the kind of environment where these young people can come in, and for the couple of years that they're in community college with Riverside School District or Community College District, that they have a proper home that they can invite people into, just like we would, and say, okay, come into the living room. Here's their living room. They've got, the bedrooms. We're going to have our interior designers to design them in such a way that we've got feature walls, but we will have the interior designers work with them to help them customize those units so that they will go out and pick their own linens and they will pick their artwork on the walls and those kinds of things. Why? Because we would like, when they move out, that they are comfortable, that they can create an environment, a home environment, wherever they are. Otherwise, what happens is that people get so attached to this affordable housing that they don't move on. And that's not something that we want. We don't want to create a space where people don't feel that they can go ahead and move on to their own locations. So let me see, that is the end of that. I want to show you just one other image if I can do that. Did anyone have any questions about what I've shown so far?
I have one more.
Mm-hmm.
So usually when it comes to affordable housing and an interior space, or just a space in general looking pretty, I often find that those two conflict. Like you can't, like I see that people either struggle with making a place feel like a home and making it affordable. And I was just wondering, for you and the people you work with, what is one of the biggest contributors to making a place affordable, but at the same time beautiful?
There's so much that goes into putting a budget together up front. In order for us to be able to get our project financed, up front, we have to be able to say, this is how much we know, this is how much the architecture is going to cost, this is how much the interiors are going to cost, this is how much the landscaping is going to cost, and we are committed. Once we submit that and it is approved to be built, we have already committed to it. So we may say, for those 35 units, we've put a budget of $150,000 together or something like that. So we have put that aside upfront. It cannot be, it can't turn into 250,000. We may end up having to take it down from 150 to 125 or something, but we have already, the interior designer has already worked with us and said, okay, we've got to buy 34 beds. We've got to buy, this many sets of linen, because if we're dealing with homeless folks or people who don't have, young students, they're not coming with furniture. And so we have already decided that we will tell our interior designer, same as you tell an architect, here's the feel that we want to go, that we're going for.
Do
And
you
then they
work,
come back.
you
they
work in collaboration with cost estimators to help establish that?
Absolutely. We've got the interior designers, we've got the architects, we've got our general contractor, we've got our engineers. Everybody is at the table, and the interior designers will come up to us and they'll say, okay, here's what we've got. And we'll say, well, it's kind of going over budget because of COVID. We can't get the appliances that we thought, so let's pivot and find us 34 of this one instead. We'll say, when we budgeted this project, it was in 2019, here it is 2021, the price has gone up by 20%. So we may say, okay, then we can't do those rugs, give us a different solution instead. So yeah, it is the exact same as the architecture, exact same as the landscape. When we talk about the feel that we're going for, I will tell you, for example, in this building, we will say, okay, here's what we're looking at. The architect has already told us this is what it costs to put metal cladding on the outside of the building. This is what it costs to have a vertical garden on the walls of the staircase. This is what it costs to put those kinds of planters so that we can prevent people from getting close enough to the building to graffiti on it. We've planned all of those things in advance. It's a little bit different than private commissions on residential work or even commercial or office work, because we have to have the budget set and we can't veer from it. When you have a client, a lot of times it's hard for you as an architect to say, but you can't do that, because they'll say, but I want it. And you're battling back and forth, and usually it comes out of your architectural fees. But if you know what you're doing, you will tell them, listen, we went through this budget. This is what you asked for. Usually you'll have them sign off, this phase, we agree that this is what we're going for. So when they decide to change, you can then say, okay, the budget has also changed. That's a change order. We need you to modify that. But this was an interesting project in Little Tokyo at the corner of First and Alameda, where we wanted to do some affordable housing, but we also had an interest in doing some artist space, live work units. The Metro Center was coming out of the building as well. Let's see. We talked about, we did the design of the building so it would direct people moving through. We had food courts. Every side of the building, you had people being able to look out and engage. You can see where we've got balcony areas on all the levels. And I will tell you that this balcony, this upper balcony and lower balcony is something that we had done in a single family residence in the Hollywood Hills. So these are, you really can get just incredibly creative in a single family project and a multi-family project as well. This was a view from the rear of it because we wanted to make sure that there was no back end of a building. You've all seen buildings where 3 sides of it you'd love to be, but nobody walks in the back. You don't know what's happening back there. You don't want to get mugged back there. We believe that all the buildings should always engage on all sides. And so that was something, this is the plan. You can see that we purposely curved it so that we would encourage people to kind of walk through and engage in different aspects, different sites and components of the project. That's something that you can do as you're
showing us. Are you planning on showing us something different? Because we're still looking at the young folks housing.
Okay, then let me
share again.
Go and start. Yeah, I'm real sorry about that. This is the building that I was.
There you go.
About.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is let me go back up. This was a project that we had talked about. This giant art wall We wanted to have a mural on it, but we also put a screen on it so that we could have a roof terrace so people could watch movies. Okay, here's a quick quiz. What movie is that on the screen? I didn't even know it, but somebody in the audience knew. Blade Runner. I would not have known that.
I would not have known that.
I
Yeah.
would not. Somebody said, "Oh, hey, look, you got Blade Runner," and I said, "How the heck would you know that?" But in our community meetings, they, they knew it. So here's what I was talking about. We did this building. There was a period of time in Little Tokyo when Blacks moved in, and it was when the Japanese were sent to internment camps. It was called Bronzeville. And so we put bronze mesh around the exterior of the building so that we could recognize that part of history. You'll see that this is a taller level. That was our live work spaces, maybe some artists, maybe some solopreneurs or craftsmen would be there. This is a close-up. It shows you that vertical green garden wall. The residents, the community, when I said know who your clients are, the community wanted an edible garden. Well, we don't have space to give you an edible garden, not in the traditional sense. So we made it a vertical edible garden. I mean, there's so much creativity that you have as architects. Use it, use it. Again, go to a place like Hennessy and Ingalls or go look at magazines and get inspired. Don't be limited by the creativity that you know. Expand and let others help influence the kinds of creativity that you have. So this is a food court. This is at that corner across from the Japanese American National Museum. And this is looking back. This is what I was talking about. We wanted to make sure that people could engage at every level on every side of this building. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the High Line in New York. Have you heard of that?
I am, of course.
Okay,
I'm from
write
there.
that
It's great.
down, High Line. It's fascinating. It is a aerial train tracks that were abandoned, and some folks came up with the idea of planting it, and it created this incredible outdoor park. It is just one of the most amazing uses of leftover space. I would encourage you as architects and designers to think outside of the box. When you're driving down the street and you're seeing these spaces that are underutilized or these little strips of space that you think, well, what can we do with that? You could make it a pocket park. It's just amazing, High Line in New York City. And this is what I was talking about, the back of the building. We designed it so that you don't end up getting scared to walk behind a building because it is exciting on one side as it is on the other. We created patio spaces on that side so that you could have lots of different events going on at the same time. And this is what I was talking about with the plan. The reason why we did this plan is to encourage how people move through a space. I just encourage you to use the time that you've got here and choose where you want to go and really take advantage of the opportunity that you have to influence, to bring in the outdoors, to take a look at how art can be incorporated, to look at how interior design, either you're doing it or you're bringing someone else in, but you're thinking of how would furniture be placed in there? How does color, how does texture interact with the work that you're doing? And if it turns out that you move from being that architect to being the one who hires the architect or assembles the architect, or as the architect, you end up becoming a part of the planning commission, or because I was on the area planning commission, or you become part of an arts committee. Think of the opportunities you have to serve on nonprofit boards. An organization like mine, I will be real frank with you, we're always looking for young people to join our board because we want that creativity. We want that experience that you have, that vision that you have that we don't have, that degree that you're going for. And even if you don't, even if you have not graduated yet from El Camino, you still have talents and value that you can bring to others. Don't wait until you get your degree or you get your license to feel like that's when I'm going to go get a book and learn about this, or that's when I'm going to be able to go and ask to be on a board or something like that. You have the skill sets right now to do that. And so I just want to encourage you to do that. Well, that's all I have. I have rambled on, so
Well, I think it was
welcome-
outstanding. I think
welcome
if
yours.
anybody has any, closing questions, you should certainly ask.
I'm
No
just
closing
in
questions,
awe
but
right now.
sorry.
No, you're good.
But yeah, like thank you so, that was incredible. Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Well,
And
thank you.
It's like,
Dwayne, did
wow,
you
that
have?
was so amazing. Oh,
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
No, go ahead, Landry. Go ahead.
Really quick, that was so amazing. I was just really impressed with your whole presentation. I just really felt so a part of it. I just love the way how you interacted with every single person, and that you just didn't come and like, okay, I have this presentation and I'm going to give this presentation, but it's like, no, it's like you looked at your audience and you're like, okay, it's like, I'm going to get everybody involved and I'm going to, challenge everyone to think and be like, even more passionate about, architecture. And I'm like, wow, that was so good. Also, I love how you were working on the facility for the homeless college students. Because in 2018, in our real estate class, they had came out with an article where it was 15% of all of the students at El Camino College was homeless. And we're just
Wow.
like blown away by it. And that was before COVID. So you can
Yeah.
imagine how high those numbers are. And so it's like, that's extremely difficult trying to study, do your homework, and you don't know if, like who couch you're sleeping on, and that's why it's really been a passion, because I believe that everyone should be able to have a roof over their head, because it's like life is tough, and it's already hard enough, and you shouldn't have to worry about just basic fundamentals so that you can be secure, so that you can be mentally stable. One of the reasons why we have so many people that's mentally ill is because their basic needs are being neglected and they're not even being taken care of, So I just really love the work that you do. And then also really quick, because I know you got to go and other people got to ask questions too. With the one facility, I think it was on Western and 87th Street. With that one, I got to double check, but I believe Marquise Dawson is the councilman of that district.
Yeah.
If he is, I try and get in contact with him because I know him and his wife Carrie personally.
Do you?
And then yes, and definitely, like I can, like ask questions and make sure that their project, that it goes, that it comes along and everything goes, like scheduled and stuff, But
Well,
yeah,
I would be happy to keep you informed on how that goes. I will even say, Ruben, we've got a project in historic Filipino town, Hi-Fi. We're only 10% partner on it, but we're going to do a hard hat tour of it. I'd be happy to, if your students want to, do
we
a
would look at Monica.
hard
We
hat
would
tour.
love to do it. Sure.
Yeah. And we've got a ton of IHO hard hats that we can't pay people to take. So I will require each of you to take one, but we'd be happy to take you through it because it's a stepped hillside site about 7 stories. And we're going to be scheduling a site visit probably in December. But
Okay.
I'd be happy to let you know if that's something that you're interested
Oh,
in when we do our site
yeah.
visits or groundbreakings, or, and if you can't make it, don't feel, don't lose a job because you're trying to get across town to get to something that you can do later.
Where
Talk to
is that
Ruben.
again?
It's in historic Filipino town, which is
But I said,
just, it
yeah.
is just west of downtown LA, around Temple and Furman Street is it. If you're driving down in downtown, you can't help but see it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know.
Furman
It's like, it's
and
kind of
Temple.
just above the
It's
building
right.
department and all of that, if
Yeah,
you
it's
will, but
right. Yeah, actually, it actually is. It's the next street over, the next street north is the 101 freeway. But
right.
we will do a walkthrough of that, and in
So
most of
yeah,
our projects are in other places, but we'd be happy to whenever
yeah.
there is a
Let me know. Is there a particular day that's going to happen or
what day do
time?
you all meet? Because what we can do is set something up if we need to do it on a weekend or something.
I'm
Fridays are
thinking a
usually,
Friday or a Saturday would be
Friday
good.
would, yeah, if Friday is good, Friday would be good, and we could certainly pick up the tab for lunch.
Is
So
that
be happy to do
outstanding,
it.
folks? And Abigail, what is your nationality?
Latino. I'm like, ooh, express a field trip.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do it. We could invite the architect, we can bring the drawings, we'd be happy to take you out to lunch and talk it. And you know what? My sister is the interior designer on that project. We can have her bring her sample boards as well. Just,
Oh my goodness.
get a 1-2 punch out of this. So let
So,
me know some days, and I'll call the other developer and say we'd like to bring a group of folks over.
Michelle,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the other students had asked about affordable housing. Isn't the definition a percentage of the median income that
It
area?
is. The median income is the amount of income that the majority of people, it's not an average per se, but if you, it's a little bit confusing, but for affordable, typically what they're looking at is 30% of the average median income, the income that the majority of people have. And it's usually between 30% of the average median income and 80% of the average median income. And 80% would be like your entry level, it would be architects, teachers, nurses, those kinds of thing. On the other end, on the lower end, at 30% and below 30%, would be those young people coming out of foster care, seniors, or those living on Social Security who are only making about $900 to $1,000 a month. And so each county has is adjusted. People will say all the time is if you make too much to be considered affordable in Los Angeles, but you still can't afford to live here, then get a place in Orange County because the median income is a little bit higher. And so you may be low income in Orange County. So, but that's usually what we're looking at is those people who are somewhere in between that amount.
Yeah. Your presentations were really nice. I just didn't want anybody to think that affordable meant cheap.
Yeah, I will tell you that. It used to be that when we would go to folks and we would say, we're doing affordable housing, it was, oh my gosh, you're going to run the neighborhood down. You're going to, one of my favorite stories is we were doing our 35th anniversary at one of our senior properties, our first property that we did in 1981. And I put the flyers out and invited all of the community where it was in Irvine in a really nice neighborhood. This guy calls me up and he says, do you know what? I heard that they're going to be putting affordable housing in this neighborhood, and we've got to get together and say no because you've got these seniors and we don't need low income people around them. And I said, well, sir, the honest truth is that they are the low income folks and they've been living here for 35 years. And he was so caught off guard. But without missing a beat, he said, why are they getting that? You know, why do they get that? Why are we using our taxpayer money and giving them something that nice? And I thought, oh, well, you know, you can't please everybody. Either they're concerned that they're going to run it down, or they're concerned that it's too nice. So, yeah. But Ruben, let me know. Let me know,
Yes.
and I will set up a time. It would
we
be
are
great if
working
it's the
some
first week or two in December.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at. But I will let you know by next week sometime, definitely.
All right, and I will dig out hard hats for each of you.
All right, well, great. And they should, take heed on that hard hats thing. I've told students before, I don't think I've told all of you, but there's really power in having your own hard hat and leave it in the trunk.
It is.
And because when you go near a job site, if you say you're a student or you're in architecture or whatever, a foreman is more likely to let you come on if you have a hard hat, and most importantly, have some hard shoes on.
Yeah,
And
yeah. No open toe shoes, no flat shoes.
tennis shoes is
Tennis
already a
shoes
push. It's a
I was about to
push.
say that's the closest that you will get. Is if it has a little bit of a thickness in the sole.
Yeah, but just get
Any
some Payless
flat-
shoes
yeah.
with the thick. So that's it.
Actually, you go to Big Five, around $20, you can get some work boots.
Boom. And then they'll let you get on sites. But if she's giving you a hard hat, you're going to keep that puppy and have it. There's so much work going on El Camino's campus. So, there's things like that too, that you could, hey, when it comes to big group, not to get squirrely, because, it's the logistics and issues that they have to deal with. But if you come like that, you're ready. But Rochelle, without further ado, wow, it's after 8. It didn't feel like 2 hours.
I am so sorry.
No apology. Except I think everybody here is happy that this has gone on, and this is outstanding. We do have it recorded so we could show people what they missed, because they really missed it. I will say thank you. Dan had to leave for a 7:30 meeting. He texted me and said, tell Rochelle this was outstanding, and he really thanks you for doing it. And looks forward to talking to you offline too. So
all right, well, take care.
There we go.
If you need anything, let Ruben know and he'll get in touch with me.
You want to say hi, Rochelle?
So much.
No, you got to come on in.
Hey, sorry. How are you doing? All right. Well, you all take care. And like I said, if you need anything from me, you let Ruben know, and he'll get in touch.
We will be coordinating.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, people.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Professor.
All righty. You're welcome.
Thank you
All
so
right.
Talk
Thank
to
you,
you soon.
Ruben.
All righty.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Good night.